right, welcome to another episode of Xposure Runs the podcast. I'm excited to have our next guest. I seem like I always say I'm excited to have the next guest, but I am excited to have each guest that we have up here. So we want to welcome head basketball coach of Julian High School, who also moonlights as a Prep Hoops contributing writer, Coach Steve Parham. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
The hood say Parham. The correct way is Parham, but
Parham.
It's all right. We
Okay,
can go either or.
Is that French?
Genesis? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. We appreciate you being up here today, Coach. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, man.
Right off the back, so you and I met at a Prep Hoops event, actually one of my very first runs, I believe. And I think it was the run down at
Pullman Center.
The Pullman Center, right? One of my very first runs when I was doing the 22s and the 23s. Yep. And you came to that event. Can you just really talk just a little bit about that event and kind of where we've progressed to, up to, and including the podcast?
Man, if people already know me or don't know much about me, I'm a gym rat. This basketball happened, and I'm trying to get to it and see it. So when you were posting about your runs and practically, just your first run, so I missed the first run, but we didn't know each other. So the second run, I reached out and said, hey, man, I'm a writer. I would love to come out. You told me, sure, come through. You've been meaning to reach out to us. I said, perfect, I'm there. It was during COVID. There was nothing going on. Nothing happening. So I rushed to the chance to come up. So when like I said, we talked. I liked what you were doing. Prior to the COVID, I was doing something at Kenwood where we had the Nike camp and we did Nike runs, and the format was very similar. We just reached out to a lot of the top players in the area and just said, "Hey, come up and just play in the run," and it went well. So again, when COVID shut everything down, I was just excited to just get back around some basketball and just kind of get out the house. Going forward. Now, I didn't know that Xavier was your son, right. Yeah. But, just watching him dunk on people's head, I'm like, oh, man, he's good. And he was like, when I saw him with you after, I was like, oh, okay. I started putting two and two together. So that's how we, kind of hit it off. And then, like I said, every night I was coming up there practically once a week to the events. And then once we kind of got back going, we kind of kept close, and you was just letting me know about different situations. Now, of course, once we started playing, I couldn't get to the Maris games like I wanted to. A lot of times, Maris played the same time that my team did at Julian. But like I said, we kept in communication. We talked about AAU stuff. Then you guys put the team on the Prep Hoops circuit. So was watching how that went. And no, I'm not gonna say much about that part, but saw how that went. And then we kind of just struck a great relationship with each other, and anything you've ever done, I've always been supportive and willing to be there to give a helping hand.
I definitely appreciate that. As far as the platform going and how we started, I mean, it's no secret that I started a platform for Xavier. That's no secret. I've never hid that. I've never, gotten around that. It was his thing, and I just so happened to be able to help other players like him, and then took an opportunity for some of the more superstar type players to come through. I remember our very first run. I don't know if you know this or not, but the very first run that we did with Dave was at my wife's school over in Inglewood, and we had Mattis there, we had JJ there, we had Shikachi there, Diggy, Zay, Day. I mean, that picture is someday going to be worth millions.
Well, that video, it's already been streamed on YouTube. Right. I can't remember what footage people you had there, but I saw that footage and I was like, man, this is all the freshmen. But also, I can't remember what event it was. There was another event where it was all freshmen, and you guys were there. It was like in the southwest suburbs.
Okay.
With the Chicago something, but like they gave you guys like black uniforms.
I know what you're talking about, but I forget the event as well.
Yeah. And that was kind of when I first saw everybody, because that class was special. Like, man, and like I said, Mattis and Day ended up getting the MVP, but everybody was looking for, where's this kid? And like everybody else would start I could start separating who was who.
Right.
And that was one of the other first times that I kind of saw you guys but didn't know who you were at the time.
Right. So according to a little bit of research I did, you began coaching at Morgan Park in 2006?
7. Whenever Derrick Rose senior year at Simeon.
Okay. What made you want to get into coaching high school basketball?
Honestly, I've always wanted to coach basketball. Even though I was still technically in my college career, like still playing basketball at the time. But what happened was I committed to a school out of town. That didn't work out, so I moved back and had to go to Robert Morris.
Okay. In
the midst of me going to Robert Morris, I had to sit out because by that time everybody was already a team and I was going to school. And so one of my cousins was the head coach at Phillips, then became the head coach at Morgan Park.
Okay.
In the midst of that, he brought me over because I wasn't doing anything. So I just started helping out and coaching with those guys, and it was just something I loved. Like, you know what, I don't care too much about. I mean, I'll still play, but I didn't care too much about playing at that time. I just grew this passion for just coaching basketball.
And you've been doing it ever since.
Ever since.
And then when did you take over at Julian?
So about 5 years ago, like right 2019. Well, I'm saying 5, like 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 2019.
And when did you and how did you become a writer with Prep Hoops? How did that happen?
So I was already in a lot of contact with coaches. I would go, like I said, a gym rat, would go to several games. A lot of coaches always used to see me at Christmas tournaments, things of that nature. So I was always doing like some silent, like, hey, check this guy out, check this guy out. Got you. Type stuff. And then I started doing the Tweed Night games. And in the midst of that, another guy who's actually a Division I coach now, Brandon Dunson, who's at Stanford now, he started out he was the initial Prep Hoops guy. He had his own site that he had in Central Illinois that he was running, that he started as a player, which is funny. He was a player and started his own scouting service. Okay. And he did the smart thing. He didn't put himself number 1. He put himself like 8 or 9. And just, put, a couple of his peers ahead of him. And so I guess the Prep Hoops people at the time, it was called North Star Hoops, reached out and they found out that he was, about to coach and things. So he reached out to me because I was always in Chicago and doing a lot of stuff. So he reached out to me, and that's how I kind of got started.
Oh, okay. Being a coach at Julian, do you sometimes want to put your players, give them the benefit of the doubt when you're evaluating them? No?
They have to work double hard for me. Like
I like that.
Yeah, I'm not my kids have to do something extraordinary because we're already in a situation where we're not the highest of the highs. Right. And if you're just coming in and just, I'm gonna go try to score 40 points, but that don't do nothing for me. We're playing we're in one of the lowest levels of basketball. Right. You have to be consistent. So once my kids are consistent, then I can say, hey, now I can help you out.
I'm glad you said that. That segues me into my next question. You said scoring 40. So when you're evaluating talent, whether it be for your own personal gain as a coach or you are evaluating for Prep Hoops, what is Steve looking for?
I'm looking for guys who have a feel of basketball. You have to have the feel of the game, because when and I know we're going to get to this later about how we do rankings. You goddamn right. You know that's a question. I know. I've been through it before. When looking at how guys play, you have to look at what will translate over to the college game.
Okay, fair.
Because some people could just play fast and just that's all you can do. But then once the game slows down and you can't do anything, then what are we doing? How can I send a coach over to come watch you and I know you're going to go play at DePaul Prep and they're going to take the L out the ball and you're going to look bad. I have to look at the whole realm of basketball, and that's why that's one of the reasons why I got into scouting, because I don't want to talk bad about other scouts, but there's not many other scouts that actually played the game. I already know. It's one of my fucking questions. I know. Listen.
Okay, I'm listening. I'm getting ready to jump to that motherfucker, but I'm going to wait.
This isn't my first time.
Go ahead. Go on.
There aren't many scouts that played the game. So, I mean, I know there are scouts that were in front of me that knows how to look and evaluate, but you also have to know what will translate. And a lot of times just scoring points doesn't always translate to the next level because some kids could score the mess out the ball but then get to a college and they are put into a role. Now when they're put into a role, they can't do anything, which is why the portal is a big thing now.
Now, I know you had mentioned you had saw a little bit of Coach Rob's interview, and he kind of spoke about that a little bit. I mean, do you agree with that in terms of some of the reasons why players are transferring is because the coaching isn't good, or is it something else? Because there was a hella debate on a couple of the little basketball groups that we are a part of collectively. And, of course, some of them said, no, it ain't the coaching, and some of them agreed. So, like, what is your thoughts on that?
It's a mixture. I can't speak on the coaching not being good. Now, it is some areas where people aren't coaching at all and just kind of –
Their talent.
Yeah, they're just working off talent, and we've seen how that's happened and what's happened with those situations.
When they run into real coaching.
Yeah, they fall flat. But also it's the hype and who's going where. And, you know, I know personally for a fact I have coaches who reach out to my guys. I'm like, well, we're in the lowest division. What you going to do with my guys? But I get – know that they well coached and they've been trained because that's what I do. Right. So you come get. It's easy to come get one of my guys to come help you out because you know they can probably
they come in with some good stuff.
They come in with some stuff and they're gonna know some stuff.
Right.
But it's understood that the higher level high schools and I've said this before this starts happening. The prep school part plays a big part in this. The prep schools are going to take the better players from the best high schools, which means the trickle-down effect is those best high schools, those really good high schools are going to start taking from the lower-level guys, just like in college.
Right.
It's
a domino effect.
It's a domino effect.
It's the way of the world. It goes into real life like a job.
Yep.
When the job loses a good person to another job, you go and poach from another job. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Have you ever been wrong on scouting a player, one way or the other, where you scouted them? And I like to think I know you well enough. I now know how you scout. So, like, your scouting isn't scouted from a difference of like, oh, this kid, he fucking sucks. It's like, he needs to work on some shit. Right. And you always highlight the good when you kind of. So, have you ever been wrong, like where you like, he needs to work on this. He isn't that good. Versus, oh, this motherfucker, he the one, and it's kind of like been flip flopped.
Both. Like, I've watched so much basketball where I've literally was like, man, this dude, he's going to be tough. Then 2 years later, you never hear about him. And it's not because he did something bad. It's just whatever he did that was really good only worked for him at that where he was or at that time. And then the other part is seeing somebody, people rave, oh, he could do this, he's this, he's that. And I go see him like, I don't know. And then over time, that person actually becomes what everybody said they was. I could say personally, I could say personally that I know I was right about that. A lot of people wronged me on. One was Fred VanVleet.
Okay.
People said, oh, he can't shoot, he can't do this. I said, listen, that kid is at Rockford and got them winning tons of games. He's doing something right. Another one, and I know it seems like I'm front running when I'm saying these names. But Max Strus. I saw Max Strus playing with the Illinois something Magic out in Fort Wayne. This dude was dunking everything. And a guy who passed away, Donnie Kirksey, was like, man, this kid could play. And he was at USC at the time. I was like, yeah, why hasn't any Division I's recruited this kid? This kid was legit 6'5", 6'6", could shoot, and was super athletic. Like, he don't show that in the NBA.
I was going to say, like,
Max was banging on guys. And Fort Wayne at the time was like the end-all, be-all of, like, everybody played there.
Right.
And he was there doing whatever he want, whenever he want, and nobody recruited him. Nobody saw him.
And why do you think that was?
My thing was probably he was at Stagg High School. Nobody knew much about Stagg. They didn't get much fanfare. I mean, it's a South Suburban school, but South Suburban Hoops wasn't out at the time where they could put it out there, and it was no big social media thing. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So social media wasn't really pubbing him, and then probably because he played with that team.
Okay.
I mean, he was one of those guys that probably wanted to play with his friends, and he didn't play with a bigger program, so that's kind of probably how his recruitment went. How it went, even though going to Lewis, I don't think is a bad thing, but.
Yeah, they recruited Zay a little bit. Coach, shout out to Coach Rocco. Yeah. He kept it all the way 100 with me, even if I didn't want to hear some of the stuff he said. But shout out to him. And since you naming names on who did you kind of like put out there like, yo, I think he's gonna be the one, and then kind of turned out not to be, and not to put nobody's kid down. So I want to be careful with how I ask that, and I want you to be careful with how you answer that.
Yeah.
Answer it. But like, who did you think like, you know what, this kid is gonna be something, and then after a few years, you didn't really hear much about him.
Again, just kind of, I won't say front runner, but the kid Jeremy Richmond from Waukegan a while back was a McDonald's All-American. I thought he was the pro. Went to Illinois, it just didn't
pan out.
Okay. Man, there's no real names because all the kids that also happen to just kind of stop playing basketball. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of different
for a variety of
different reasons.
Okay,
but it was like I said, being a guy who's always in the gym, I've seen lots of kids just kind of fizzle out, and I also see kids who they just need a different atmosphere to get it out of them.
Got you. Okay, as a scout and evaluator, who thus far has been the best player you've ever seen
in person? Zion Williamson, and that's scouting and coaching against him.
And you
yeah.
So why hasn't none of that translated from that to Duke to now in the NBA with the shit he got?
Because I'm a Zion Williamson fan, but his weight and stuff is paying, and then we all find out what his vice is now.
Pussy. But that's all of our vices.
Right, no, exactly. I mean, he likes the professional guy. so with that, I mean, those would be things that could slow him down. But I mean, he's every way he's winning, he's dominated. I mean, if you watch
the few games he played in the NBA, he was killing.
Watch him against LA. Look how he made LeBron look like a little boy.
Yeah,
this early this season. I mean, he was banging LeBron. I'm like. That's the Zion I remember.
Do you think Zion is going to end up being now? The two players that I'm going to name is specifically for the fizzle out because of their weight, kind of like a Oliver Miller,
or Sean Kemp.
Sean Kemp. I was going to even go with Tractor Trailer.
Ooh, yeah.
Do you think that he's going to end up being of that caliber?
I hope not. I hope maybe I never thought New Orleans was the place for him to be. It's a Creole food type of town. That's just a worse place for somebody.
Food and pussy.
That too.
Food and pussy. That's what New Orleans is.
Yeah.
But why has he been the only one that we know of? Because I'm not saying that the other players haven't been subjective to those vices, but why is his shit out on Front Street?
Well, let's look at this is a whole nother topic, but let's look at the South Carolina aspect. Him and Ja come from areas where they didn't see much of this stuff. So when you get it from a rush, and you don't have the veterans to say, "Hey man, this ain't that,"
or it's plenty of that. Chill out.
Yeah, relax. When you don't have that, then you get the situation with both of them.
Okay,
and so they've been put in situations that. Every team in the NBA wants to be young now, and so now when you don't have the veterans, you don't have the veterans to be like, man, hey, young fella, come here, chill out. You know, Zion was already on Twitter like looking like a goofy when he was trying to get like some white girls or something. They was like he was loving. They was FaceTiming him and putting him in a picture back when he was at Duke. Talking about, so you look beautiful, and they was recording him and then posting like, come on, bro. But.
Yeah, every organization needs a OG, regardless, whether it's coaching, whether it's working at a Fortune 500. But you see these companies, they want to go young, fresh out of college because they don't want to pay them top dollars.
Yep.
And so that's what that boils down to. All right, well, we're gonna jump right into the real reason why you here. Like, let's not even, I kind of give you the appetizer. Let's jump into this main course right about now. So, for those that don't know, what goes into the Prep Hoops rankings?
So I've said it before. A lot of people get mad. I've had people come to me. My son ain't 78. This ain't 40 people better than me. I mean, that's not how we do our rankings. Our rankings are based off tiers.
Okay.
So it's based off tiers.
Okay.
And realistically, it's high major to mid-major plus, mid-major, low major plus, low major, D2, down the scale.
Now, when you say based off tiers, I remember you told me, and this wasn't you telling me because I was bitching about Zay. It was just explaining to me it's based off of projections of where y'all see the kids.
Well, that was the second part I was
going to.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. So it's in tiers. That's how we started off. Now it's based off the projection of where, not saying the highest level, but what the projection of where the kid is at that moment.
Okay.
And according to coaches. So, and I've said this all the time, and kids get mad at me. You are who recruit you. You are who recruit you.
That stings a little bit.
I know.
That stings a little bit because if you ain't getting recruited, that means technically what you're saying is you ain't shit.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of colleges out here. They just don't get to see everybody. Well,
I'm a read between the lines type of a brother. Like you say, you are who recruit me. If motherfuckers ain't recruit me, that means
yeah. But so that's let's say your son.
Okay.
When you were telling me his list, he had some Division I schools that were interested, but he also had like some Division IIs and even some Division IIIs where I knew he wasn't a Division III guy, but
one Division III was tight that we didn't choose them.
Exactly. So we go to that part. So the coaches are only going to try to recruit you if they feel like you are their level.
Okay.
You don't see many Division IIIs walking to Marez Johnson at the end of the game. All the 4 years, I was like, "Hey, son, don't go to Illinois. This is the,
right?
Like that's just what it is." And because of that, that's sort of how we based our ranking process. And I'll say this, and I don't want to go to a specific group, but you can do like the first 10 guys, and that's all high major guys. But then like the next 11 through 30 could be mid plus, but because somebody's at 27 and somebody's at 15 don't mean that they're better than you.
Right.
You're all just based in that tier.
Okay.
That's how we do the rankings.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people, like you said, get tight about that. I'm like, bro, you can boost up 5 more spots. What difference does it make?
So I remember, before I ask this next question, specifically about the rankings, I remember when I started this platform, Xavier wasn't even ranked, either because a lot of people didn't know who he was, or of course, you and I had this conversation. I just felt like, we wasn't from here. So it was just like, well, who is this kid? From the first event I did with that guy, after that, he jumped onto the rankings list. I don't remember where. By the second or third run, Zay was in the top 25.
We saw him. I mean, we can't. I'm not a component of just like, oh, this kid's on somebody else's list. We need to put him on the rankings. Like, we have to see him first, So after we see him and have a chance to really evaluate him, then we can place him, and then we'll place him at a starting point. But if we start seeing him getting better, then we can start to move him up or drop him lower. So
to be fair, you said because you saw him, there are, and I'd like you to correct me, there are kids on the Prep Hoops rankings currently and prior that were ranked pretty high that y'all didn't see.
Well, we've had to see him. The thing is, it's now. I mean, at this point now, it's like 6 of us. It's 6 of us in Illinois. It initially started out with just me and Scott, and we had another guy, but he ended up leaving, doing something else. But between between the three of us, we've seen most of the
Okay.
kids. So like Scott is from the southern Illinois, southern east part of Illinois. So he sees a lot of those guys there, and then he comes up for the bigger events to see the bigger talent.
Okay.
I'll see Central Illinois guys, some kids from Rockford, of course, most of the Chicagoland area, and then we kind of just throw the names here.
Okay.
And this is how we see them.
So that was actually one of my questions was who's on that board of rankings? How many of it is you said 6 or is it more?
Well, no. So
Okay.
mostly Scott starts it out. He has he's
Okay.
the one who has the most experience at it. And then I'll come give my feedback. And now the new guy we have, Teddy, who does a really good
Teddy
job.
Bennu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who he was Teddy started out as a videographer.
Right,
Yeah, he started
right.
out
I
as a
remember.
videographer.
I think he did a video or two of Zay's, but yeah.
Underdog.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
So once he came on and he started giving his input, that was good. Then we also started. Then Reggie came on and he was doing like the younger guys. So we, he started giving us a little bit of input on the younger guys that we just didn't know much about. But that's basically how we do it. So we'll get an email and we just kind of all give our feedback and say, hey, this kid is probably way too low. We probably need to move him up right here. Now, granted, sometimes once we move a kid up and then we go watch them, they play like crap. I'm like, oh, God.
Right.
But I always say you can't go off of that because, like I said earlier, you can go. I'll give you an example. Jay Sean Stevenson.
Okay.
I say, hey, this kid is nowhere near this level. He's going to be at the top.
Right. Because first of all, he's a 6'4" point guard.
Right. So we had him like 60-something. But to be fair, I didn't get to see a lot of Limbo games. I've seen him before with an AAU stuff, so I couldn't really give a full evaluation.
Right.
And because he was playing with, I was affiliated with Y&R at the time, so it looked like, oh, you just giving Y&R guys a
Right.
So I didn't do it. I did was fair. Scott watched them. Scott watched them at the Mount Carmel event, and he just had an okay game.
Okay.
But he was worthy enough to be put in the rankings.
Okay.
So then, going forward, later at the Riverside Brookfield, the first game they watched was him against DePaul Prep. DePaul Prep not going to let anybody get off on them.
Right.
So that's a bad way to evaluate.
Right.
So if you watch that game and then he does nothing, but in the next game nobody watches him, and he scores 40, you're like, damn, what happened? Then you watch him again, then he plays another tough team that not going to let him do much. It's tough, but eventually you like, nah, that dude really got something, and you know that
Teams are preparing
for him.
They're preparing for him.
This is why this guy needs to be in this top.
Right, because while the argument can be made, well, he's not doing X, Y, and Z against these other teams. Those teams they're watching film. They're coached well. When you talk about DePaul Prep, we know that lineage comes from the Wolves organization, and they do a hell of my beef aside, they do a hell of a job from all of their levels of coaching, development. Their practices isn't just rolling the ball. I can tell you this firsthand. They don't just roll the ball out and you running up and down. Them shits is structured. Mike don't play that shit at all. And he hires coaches to let them know you're going to do respectfully or disrespectfully. You're going to do what I tell you. We're going to run this system and this shit works. Yeah. Okay. So to be honest, can you understand how annoying it is to have people rank athletes of any sport, not just basketball, who've never played the sport at any level, let alone a high one?
Yes. I can. It's very annoying. I get pissed off when I see people who place reports out about players, and I know they weren't even in the gym. Some of these other rankings. Yeah, I see other people like, you weren't even at the game. Like, how you got these guys? I know you haven't seen this kid before because I'm around. Only 3 or 4 people know about this kid. They could put him in rankings, but how you ranking the kid and you barely seen him? Right. So that pisses me off. But the aspect of guys who just ranking just to have a ranking, or they have a ulterior motive behind their rankings, is the upsetting part to me, because sometimes those rankings do get the coaches, and now I got to explain to the coaches, man, that dude is not. He don't know what he's talking about. Or that kid ain't really like that.
Got you. Yeah. Got you. Other than yourself, how many of the other Prep Hoops staff have actually played the game on any level? Honestly.
I think maybe me and Reggie.
That's it.
To my knowledge, I mean Illinois.
Okay.
Now, like I said, and I'm not about to explain it.
Yeah. You ain't got to. I'm not here to put you.
No.
Got you.
It's facts. It's facts.
Right.
But, I mean, Teddy's a soccer player.
But he's evaluating and ranking basketball players.
He goes to a lot of basketball games.
But
I know.
This ain't no disrespect to Teddy.
Yeah.
And so if Teddy ever sees this, you can. I'm right here, Teddy. Like you can DM me. This ain't no disrespect, but like for me, all right. So take the hat of this platform. Now I'm speaking as Mustafa the dad.
Right.
Like how the fuck can you evaluate Xavier if your sport isn't even basketball? Yeah, I hear you. You did photography and videography and all that shit, and your work is really good. It speaks for itself. But how can you accurately and explain to a parent, let alone a college coach, which is the most important part, that your evaluation is substantial enough to take seriously and your sport isn't even basketball? I
mean, some people have it, some people don't.
Okay, I got you.
That's all I can say.
Okay. I mean, this shit is weird to me, if I'm being honest.
They've been doing it with ESPN for the longest.
Yeah, but at least for the most part, and of course that's like the highest level. But for the most part, ESPN, even though they just fired a bunch of motherfuckers,
right,
they are putting specific players from their sports as a part of their evaluating crew. Now we're talking Teddy going to go evaluate some of these soccer players. Cool.
Yeah, he does that too.
Too. Okay,
he does that as well.
All right, cool. All right,
he does prep hoop soccer, but no.
It's a fair question.
Yeah, no. Some guys do know how to evaluate talent, never played. We don't say nothing about Coach Slaughter coaching basketball. He never played. He was a baseball player, but he's a really good coach. When what's the difference?
Okay, are you asking me?
Yeah,
to answer. Okay, to me the difference is, well, first of all, and I guess over time, Coach Slaughter has worked his way up to being arguably one of the top 3 to 5 coaches in the state. Yes.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that early on in his coaching career, he took the same type of questioning from people like, well, he a baseball player. I mean, the same could be said for Trindle. Like, and I talked about his ass already. Don't make me go there. But he was, which I found out later on, he was a fucking baseball coach, right? But he had a pretty decent career from Providence, which then they brought him over after Nolan left. They brought him after Nolan, and the shit didn't work out for whatever reason. But I mean, I guess the same can be said. I guess it's a great question to ask. What is the difference? Honestly, I don't have a direct line answer, but it's a fair, combative question, debative question. Definitely. And then when you talk about the higher level, because you got coaches on in college, and hell, you got coaches in the NBA who were like role players that have made exceptional coaches, right? You talk about in the NFL, you talk about Jason Garrett. He was a backup quarterback for half his fucking life, and he was a pretty decent coach with the Cowboys. You talk about Phil Jackson. He had an injury prone career, and he's one of the best coaches in NBA history. Then you talk about Larry Bird, one of the best coaches in one of the best players in the galaxy. He was a mediocre coach.
You're skipping the biggest one.
Who?
Eric Xposure.
Yeah, he was a video coordinator. He wasn't even a coach. I don't even know if he fucking played. Did he even play?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so I mean, your rebuttal debate is well received.
Yeah, I just think when you're around something and you try to make that your passion, you can become a professional with that.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. Since you've been coaching at Julian, who has been your best player?
I'm not gonna get myself in trouble with my kids, but
we're gonna do that.
I can't say I don't have a best player. I like my kids. They do different things.
Okay.
One of my favorite players left me, and hopefully he's coming back. And I don't want to throw no
right.
One, but
come on back, shorty.
Yeah. I had a kid. Travion Chatine was dog, rebound, everything. And he had to leave for obvious reasons. The kid that I just helped, Genesis English, was really good. Another rebounder, I mean, I'm a big man, so of course I'm gonna love my
right.
my
You're big, right? Of course.
Especially when I'm teaching them my moves and they use them in games. I'm like, oh yeah,
They're paying attention. Okay.
Yeah, man. Larry was really good for me. My kid Cyrus this upcoming year is really good. I had a guard named DJ the year before who was really solid for me. I had quite a few kids, man. You know, my whole thing was just try to get them in school, and that's what that's my thing.
That's your goal.
And that's my goal.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm supposed to win championships, but
get them in school.
Championships don't mean nothing once they leave. Once they leave the school and they don't got nothing going on.
Right. Because they can win the championship and go right home to mom's couch after they graduate.
Exactly. Okay. And then be back on the streets once school is over with. So my thing is to get them to school and then now they have something else to do.
You mentioned that Zion Williamson was the best player you've ever seen. Who's the best player from the state that you've ever seen?
Derrick Rose. My first year coaching.
Okay.
First year coaching.
That was easy. Where the Staples button.
Yeah. Like, it's funny. We played, so at Morgan Park back then, you had to play Simeon twice. They was in the conference. First year we played Simeon at Morgan Park. We lost to him by 10. Tim Flowers, who's now the Simeon head coach, was on the team as well. The second game at Simeon, Rob ran a backwards play, a back pick play. We went in zone. Derrick Rose caught the ball, did a 360 dunk, and that was just it. Like, it was nothing we can do. And like you saw everybody's life just leave out of them while we was on the bench.
The game was over.
And we just kind of just sat there and just let them do whatever they want the rest of the
game. How much did COVID hurt the recruitment of players?
A lot, and people debate me to this day, but you could tell who was in the gym during COVID and who wasn't. And it's apparent the city kids wasn't. They didn't have the outlet like the suburban kids, which is why we have all the suburban state championships, and the city doesn't have many since then.
Wow.
I mean, that's and people say that's a cop-out. No, I feel that's the truth. If you look at the rankings, how many city guys I've been, it's not many. It's not many kids in the rankings. That was, you could say, now it's coming back to it.
Yeah.
But beforehand, if you look, the Martinellis and Brady Pitt, those guys were always in the gym. Suburban guys.
Yeah, that's true. Damn, I didn't even peep that. I didn't even peep that.
Like, all those guys were always in the gym. Martinelli, I love, because that dude, he didn't matter where the game was. He went to go hoop.
Yo, he played with me in one of the hoops events.
I know.
And what I loved about it, and I actually kind of just got chills. What I loved about, and shout out to Nick Martinelli over at Northwestern.
Yep.
His father, his family, his entire family, they were very supportive of the platform. When we came over to Indiana and we played in that event, it was Xavier, it was him, it was Randy, it was Jalen, it was a young kid from Whitney Young who at the time, I later found out wasn't even on the team. I think he was the team manager.
Right.
And a couple other guys, but Martinelli by far, in a way, was the best player in the not just on my team, but in
the whole event.
In the whole event,
that was one of the main reasons I drove to Indiana. I was like, oh yeah, I'm about to go see Nick again.
And he played with us, and we got to the championship game. Unfortunately, we lost in the championship game, but like Nick was very he just really took all of them under his wing, and it was apparent that he was like leaps and bounds better than them, but he didn't treat them that way. No. It was like, we in this together. We a team. We lose as a team. We win as a team. We gonna have some fun. We gonna kick that. Like, he was he's just an all around great dude.
That dude was one of my favorite players. He was literally one of my favorite players.
By far, he was definitely good. Based on what you know about Xavier's situation, and to be very clear, I'm very pleased. We talked about this multiple times. I'm pleased on where he's going and where he ended up at. But I do want to know, why do you think he wasn't recruited higher? Was it me? Was it his skill set? Was it a combination of both?
With Zay, I think a lot of coaches didn't see the consistency.
Okay.
They didn't see the consistency, which I knew. I've seen him a little bit more than others. And then also playing with that Hoops of Health team I thought the idea was great, but the type of guys that was all on that team probably just didn't work well. If you look at everybody individually, did great stuff. George, think about that team when you first had it. I was like, man, this might be one of the better AAU squads in the.
It just didn't pan out the way that and shout out to Hoops for Health, shout out to Brandon, shout out to Jeremy Senior who put the team together or helped put the team together, but individually, each of them on a different team
or much better. You had Jakeem Cole. You had
who didn't last long because his touches wasn't what they should have been.
Again, why would I go there when I know the sophomore right here is probably about to be one of the better players in the state? But just those situations, I don't say hurt him completely, but he didn't get the consistency of how he normally plays. He didn't get to show that his mid range was much better. They just thought, he's just an athlete. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably why a lot of coaches.
And he wasn't put into a lot of situations. And this might be the first time I'm saying this, although I've had some conversations in pieces with Brandon. People don't realize how much I reeled in certain situations because I didn't want to be that dad.
I know. I watched.
Okay,
I watched from the stands.
And people always before I finish the story, I remember Hines told me that it was people over at Marist that were petrified of me. And I never understood it because my routine going to a Marist game was I had my camera and I always sat at the top. First of all, I separated myself from the crowd. Mm-hmm. I always sat on the visitor side and I always wore headphones. I never wanted to hear what other people were saying. And I'm going to tell you the story on why this was. And shout out to the parents who I'm about to name with their child. The very first time Xavier went to go play with the Illinois Blaze. Right. Shout out to Sakita and Pat Cooper, one of the ground roots of this entire this AAU thing. Right. It was my first time joining AAU. I brought Xavier out to play and to try out for the team. And a parent, I won't even name the parent. The parent, it was two parents, but the mom was like really Zay was killing their son. And I'll tell you off air who it was. I'm talking about fucking killing him. And the mom was like, who the fuck is that? And blah, blah, blah. Like she was going off. And mind you, the Blaze team had Diggy, had Makai, had James Brown, had the kid I'm talking about, and Caden initially was on there. Zay was, he was killing. And I had on headphones. And in between a song, I heard the mom going off. Not in a bad way, but not in a good way either. Like kind of getting at the kid, like, yo, he killing you, but also like, well, who the fuck is this kid? Mm-hmm. And Eric Tillery tapped me on the leg, like to kind of like, I don't know if you hear it, but like, don't react. Just kind of let it go. And it was just one of them things where it was like I got my first taste of that environment, right? And so it just was one of them things where I always felt like Xavier was never really, people didn't really, they only saw him, they only wanted to see him for one thing. Mm-hmm. And when we go to kind of bring it full circle with the Hoops for Health thing, like, you know, I always wanted to kind of like, I tried to get him to kind of put Zay in certain situations. Like a lot of college coaches that reached out to me directly or got word back to me indirectly, either through you or through Derek Ellison or through other third party people had always said they wanted to see Zay more in a point guard role, handle the ball a little bit more, which admittedly was one of Zay's weaknesses. Was ball handling, right? Zay in the open court, get the ball. You don't need to do much ball handling because you know what he's going to do with the fucking ball. He going to dunk on you, he going to pull up. Yep. But to kind of like in half court sets, he struggled a little bit. Yeah. He struggled because Zay's mind is moving too fast. He's thinking too much as opposed to just doing. He thinks. And you can tell the moment Xavier's thinking, it's almost like he stops exactly what he's doing to think about what he needs to do, and before you know it, he turns the ball over. So ball handling has always been one, and it was something that admittedly I knew. Right? We didn't run from that. It wasn't like, oh, we didn't know his ball handling, but you knew that he could play. Right. Anyway, to kind of go back to the point, like, yeah, I definitely thought that would be a little bit better, and I thought the opportunities admittedly would have come because he was playing with Jeremiah, and we knew that he was going to bring the coaches out. But even in some of the showings that they had an opportunity to show, the show was push towards Jeremiah. Rightfully so. This ain't no. We had them, but I never really felt. And then the 2 games after Jeremiah scored 44, Zay scored 38 at Riverside. It was at Riverside.
One was at Riverside, and the other one was in Atlanta.
No fanfare. No fanfare whatsoever. And then the Atlanta shit, don't even get me the fuck started on the Atlanta shit. Don't even get me the fuck started on, bro. I'm going to try to move on, and if it circles back to this.
Next question.
I'm going to go the fuck off. I swear to God, I'm going to go off. So my next question is, why does college coaches seem to prefer to recruit players from single-parent homes with no fathers involved?
You're a Deion Sanders. They get them the dog in them. They trying to get their parent. They're trying to get mom out the hood.
So,
I mean, but again, it depends on the school.
Okay.
Depends on the school. We talking Kentucky and those, yeah. We talking Michigan State and
they
want a little bit more reserved. They want the 2-parent homes.
Okay. Just that simple.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like Izzo knows he wants toughness. He wants toughness, but he also wants guys who can represent a certain way. And more than likely, the 2-parent home kids are going to probably be there longer than 2 to 3 years.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think black fathers are misunderstood in the eyes of college coaches? Did LeVar Ball hurt us? And I'm only using him as an example, but did he hurt the black father with his outrageousness, perceived outrageousness?
I think social media just shined a light on it. It was always a thing.
Okay.
I don't know your background history, but you probably didn't play basketball.
I played, but football was my sport.
Right. But
I wasn't nearly as good as Xavier. I've never hit that.
Right. In Chicago, it's a lot of parents who live through their kids on the basketball. You see it, but, honestly, I'm not saying anything about myself, but my son doesn't play basketball at all. He's 6'2", about to be a freshman. Doesn't play basketball. He runs track. That's perfect for me. I do enough basketball. I get it from my family and some friends. Your son need to be playing this. He gonna get it. Even my dad, he's gonna get it at some point. If he don't, it's okay. He likes what he likes. He's gonna do it. Like he runs track. All right, man. Let's get up. We're going to the track meet.
Nah, I definitely I don't need to live through Xavier. First of all, I had a pretty decent life without being a substantial athlete, and I make this joke all the time, but I every time I make this joke, it's not a fucking joke, and I'm gonna look dead in this camera when I say this, is that if I was a high level athlete like Xavier, him and his mother would have never known me.
Right.
That's no cap.
Yeah.
I would have been a piece of. First of all, I'm already a piece of work.
Right.
Right. But
on a different scale.
On a dog. My. It would have been, and it would have been like I would have Xavier. X somebody, X this, X. It would have been about my brother from Kendrick got 6 kids. We'd have been battling.
Right.
But they would have been by different fucking mothers.
I know what it is going with.
It is what it is. Yeah. But no, I definitely don't live through Xavier. As a matter of fact, my living through him is to always try my best to make sure that when I die, Xavier's life is catapulting to way better than my life ever has been.
Most definitely.
And I had a pretty decent life. My parents did, my parents, shout out to my mother, Nisa, and my father who passed away, Ayub. I had a decent life, and my brothers and sisters. So it is what it is. Do you think Chicago basketball needs a shot clock?
Yes, it does. But I'm sorry, I got loud. But it does. But the issue, and I tell this to everybody, it's just so hard with Illinois and just Chicago alone. I don't think any of the major cities have shot clock in high school basketball. They made like the top 3, and I only say that I'm not sure, but I'm only saying because the prep work that needed to know how to even operate a shot clock, for one.
People don't even realize.
Some people don't even realize what you need to do a regular shot clock, so let alone a shot clock. So go to the bigger schools. So maybe if they want to do like the red division and CPS and a lot of the higher Catholic schools, but a lot of the lower schools just don't have people who can operate it.
And first of all, a lot of the schools, particularly in the CPS league, they're using students to operate the shot clock. And I know it was Curie. I forgot who they was playing, where it was a whole fight broke out.
Yeah, and so because of that, CPS altered a rule that only adults can do the clock
from the representing school.
Yeah, only adults can do the clock. Okay. So, I mean that lasted maybe 3 weeks before kids went back to doing it. But again, you don't. At some of these schools, not saying Julian's one, but we played at schools where adults don't even show up to games.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So the kids have to do it. Like
somebody got to do it.
Somebody got to do it, and if this kid wants to do it, then
you got to let him do it.
So yes, I would love for high school in Illinois to have a shot clock. I think it would benefit, especially for the next level.
Definitely, more that than anything, probably. Yeah. And I was just at the Nike event over the weekend. Me and Bo was just there, and shout out to that event, and of course shout out to Coach Rob for showing us love down there. They had a shot clock, and the kids, girls and boys, seem to really adjust very well to it. It's almost like if you're a baller, you're going to adjust because it's second nature. First of all, a lot of these kids, they just want to come down and jack up shit anyway. So the shot clock ain't going to mean nothing anyway until it becomes a strategic part of game planning. And then that will bear another little thing because some of these coaches aren't really okay. All right, cool. You went to Kenwood High School, correct?
Yes.
And you played.
Yep.
I want Steve Prep Hoops to scout Steve Kenwood.
At that time, D2 kid.
Okay.
Rebound really well.
Okay.
Great shot blocker.
Okay.
Had some limited. I mean, I'm going basically off what I was scouted, but
okay.
But no, limited touches, but could score, can do some stuff around the rim. Didn't become much better until I got into college, till I played in college, but high school, I was just a ferocious dude. Like I patted myself out to Kevin Garnett. Like I was talking crap. Like
you was that guy.
I was like that's who I was, and I loved the game so much. Like I didn't matter. Like I used to dive on the ball when we used to play on the concrete at times. Like I was one of those type of dudes. Like I trying to win, but I was also pretty good at it as well.
Okay. Were rankings around when you were in high school? And if they were, what were yours?
Yes. So I wasn't, again, at the time when I was at Kenwood, there was a lower level, and I didn't play as much there. I was at Kenwood at the time, I didn't go to school much.
Okay.
So we had off-campus lunch, so I wasn't around as much. So my last year there, I probably was eligible maybe the first few games, and after that just went downhill. But, the guy was a guy named Frank Rusnak, who later on went to become he left Illinois scouting and went to become a poker player in Vegas.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so he was always the one who did the ranking. It was called Illinois High School Elite. It's the website is still up. You'll go back on the website, you'll see his last few rankings where you can go and you go back to the history where he had Dwayne Wade like ranked number 3. You can go, all that stuff is still up on his website, but he started it, and then later on, we had Chicago Hoops, the website, who came on, a guy named Brian Stinnett. That's actually how we end up getting Scott. Scott Burgess was working for Chicago Hoops before that website went down, and then he came over to Prep Hoops. But I think Illinois has always had a pretty good scouting system. What's my man? Joe Henriksen does a solid job.
Yeah, he does.
He does more of a scouting report with the Hoops, city's suburban Hoops report. He does a really good job. And we had others in the past, but a lot of the other ones, they're kind of dickheads. So.
Yeah. I mean, as an alumnus of Kenwood, how do you like the direction they're headed in with Mike?
It's different. I like what they do. Like, they're gonna hype all their players up. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, when I was coaching over there, we had the same type. Like I want to say one team, we had like 9 Division I players on there that eventually went to go play Division I. But we weren't as brash as how Mike is. But that's how he's always done it. Even when they were at Morgan Park, they are who they are, and they do a good job at doing that.
They do a
great job.
And I'm looking. He's coming on the show, and I'm looking forward to interviewing him. Like, Mike is their entire family. I mean, they are the Chicago. When I moved here, the few things that I knew about Chicago: gangs, weather, and Mac Irvin.
Yep.
I didn't know nothing about the family, but and then of course Mean Streets as well, which is their rival. But those were the 3 or 4 things I knew, and then eventually I learned about fucking Harold's Chicken, and some of my students told me I couldn't wear my hat a certain way. It was fucking crazy, but it is what it is. You as a coach, what things are you doing for your players to help them get recruited?
Just getting them out there. For one, getting their skill set up first. Like, I don't want to send any kids to college and they can't play.
And they're not ready.
Getting in the gym is the main thing. I always tell my kid, just like they say in Philly, trust my process.
Hey, there we go. There we go. Shout out to Philly and Joel Embiid.
Yeah, trust my process and understand that I have an end goal for you. So this year we wasn't supposed to be as good. We ended up winning 19 games, 6 losses. I was able to get 3 kids scholarships. Man, we in the lowest division. We in the blue. And they ain't saying, not want to pat myself on the back, but there ain't too many other schools that do that.
Right.
And granted, you could say where they went, whatnot. That's the level they're supposed to be at.
Right.
But I'm making sure my kids get to school. That's the main thing for me, is make sure they have a place once they graduate.
Yep. What are your expectations for your team heading into the new season?
Same thing. We're going to be pretty good. One thing that I wish, like I said, I wish more of my kids were more basketball oriented guys. It's a difference. Again, from coaching at Kenwood to being a Julian.
You got people who play versus people who. It's like you're a basketball player versus you play basketball.
You play basketball.
I got you.
And then they think they know. Well, that's all kids. They think they know something, but
they don't know shit.
My thing is, I'm taking more street guys off the street and trying to put them in the gym, as opposed to
that's the reward.
Yeah. And that's why I'm. Oh man, you would have been doing this if I didn't bring you in the gym.
Right. So, when you played at Kenwood, who was the toughest player you had to guard?
I didn't really guard him, but a guy named Mari Sawyer was at King High School. He came to Kenwood, had like 40 points, 30 or 40. I may be exaggerating, but he was tough. He was a tough guy. But the referee saved him. He got to the free throw line 20-something times as well.
Oh, wow. Who was Barbecue Chicken? Who you get buckets to as a player?
Man, this was in Maryland. It was one team. Well, it was one team we played. Not a particular player. It was one team we played. I got close to a triple-double. I had 11 points, 10 blocks, and maybe like 6 assists. But, yeah, that Chrisfield team, they was trash.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to do something I've been doing with all of the guests up here. I want you to name your all-time NBA team. 5 starters and 1 6-man.
The easiest thing we did all day.
Okay.
Shaq at center.
Okay.
Power forward, Kevin Garnett.
Okay.
LeBron at small.
Okay.
Jordan.
Every Chicagoan, go on.
Point guard, Steph Curry.
And your 6-man?
Scottie Pippen.
That's different. Not contrary, but a lot of people don't realize this, that Scottie Pippen is my all-time favorite basketball player. Like all-time, better than Jordan.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he's better than Jordan. I'm just saying, like, when I was growing up, everybody's like, oh, Jordan. And it's like, yeah, but the shit that Scottie do to set that shit up, people are overlooking.
Scottie always guarded the best player on the team.
Like Scottie was always like, that's my guy. Too bad the shit that's going on with him now with his ex-wife and Jordan's son. So mine is AI, Kobe, Jordan, LeBron, and Hakeem, and my 6-man is Jamal Crawford.
Jamal Crawford started in Chicago.
Yeah.
Started in Chicago.
Last 2 questions. You obviously know that I'm Muslim, and in Islam, we believe our children pick us as parents. I'm hearing that. What does that mean to know that your children picked you as their father and that you picked your parents? Talk about that and what they mean to you.
Starting out with my kids, they're the reason why I do what I do, and that's a cliche thing to say, but
it is what it is.
But it's the reason why I go and make sure I'm always working, because I don't never want my kids to come to me and not be able to get something that I know is needed for them. Not something they want, something that's needed for them. So, that's why, with my kids, I would do anything for them that's within reason. Within reason.
Just so we clear.
I'm
not hiding nobody.
No. But And then my parents, like I said, my dad was part of one of the most iconic games in Chicago. He played at Phillips High School, where they played in the largest basketball game ever in the city of Chicago, city championship game. He played Phillips against Westinghouse, where they played against Mark Aguirre. They won. So that's his thing. But but he, without him and taking me to the court every day, I wouldn't have the love of basketball if it wasn't for him. So he got me on the right course, and it's paying dividends. And then my mom just always there and caring for me, and with everything she deal with, she always still finds a way to reach out and make sure that I'm doing well. And of course, she's calling me right now. But,
Mom's got that sixth sense, brother.
See, but that's I'm glad that I had them in my corner. I'm glad that they put me through the struggle I went through to become the person who I am today. And that's the reason why I sort of do what I do with my kids. I don't give them what they want. Like I said, give them what they need. I try to give them a workman's mentality, because once I leave them or they leave me, I don't want them out in the world lost.
Okay. Last question. I'd like you to send a message to your future self, talking in third person, so when you ready, you can start with Steve and then send yourself a nice little message.
Steve, you did it. You've helped everybody you could. You did what you set out to do. I don't know the people along the way that helped you do it, but those who did, thank you very much. But you did what you were supposed to do. You helped the ones who didn't have what you had, and you put them in a better place, and it's going to come back in twofold.
Definitely. I appreciate you coming, man. Like I said, man, when we were talking before we came on the air, we were talking a little bit about the first event that we did. Well, not the first event, but like my first big event when we did that down at 167. Just if you could just take a few seconds, just kind of describe what that event was like, and what you would like to see, how you would like to see that event evolve a little bit more.
For one, you always do an excellent job, because it's weird, and I said this to my boy who helps out with Mean Streets and with the fire. For some reason, it's always the out-of-staters who can come in Chicago and make something work, because you guys don't have an agenda.
Not only that, we don't got to answer to nobody,
and that too. But you don't have like a clique or nobody like I need to do it. Like it's for some reason only out-of-staters can come in and put really good events together. And not to say like the Chicago Elite Classic, I mean, that's kind of what it is. But as far as like the individual part, you guys are not aligned with anyone where somebody's going to be like, oh, don't go over there, because it's not like that.
Right.
But it was a great event. I liked, especially the last one you did with the being able to get all the
coaches to come out.
The coaches, but the media people to, all right, I need you to do a video on this guy. Like, that was superb.
That was an on-the-fly thought a few weeks prior. Yeah. The partner I did it with, I said, it would be dope as shit if I could get a videographer for every player. Yeah. That's never been done before.
No. And that was perfect. Like, I think that was something that most, and realistically, when you did that, I started thinking, with all these young kids coming up, this is something that they need to be trying to be at. This could be like a starting ground. Hey, I'm trying to get involved into this high school basketball stuff. Mm-hmm. Where do I start? You start with Xposure runs, because he's doing it from a aspect. He's trying to help everyone. Even I would even say the scouts. You had the NXT Pro dudes, and I'm supposed to be clashing with that guy, but he a good dude. So I don't. Right. It is what it is. But I was glad he was there, because that was his first time getting to see a lot of Chicago talent.
Wow.
Yeah, that was his first time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when you stuff like that, like, that's good for people who's trying to. Hey man, how can I get started? Come to an Xposure Runs event with your eyes wide open and not with a closed mind.
It was one guy, and from, I forgot his scouting service, Pro something, and he was a friend of one of the guys I partnered with to do the event, right? He was there, and all he did was talk about and eventually wrote about Jeremy and Jeremiah, right?
Was that Max?
I forget what his name is, and I'll show it to you out there, but it was Pro Insight something.
Yeah, I know who that person is.
I forget his name, right? Good dude. This is, and what I'm going to say, I said to him. So this ain't like I'm backbiting him. And if it is, then he's saying it for the first time and fuck it.
Right.
Is that, bro, with all due respect to Jeremiah and Jeremy, they got their shit already. I invited you to have your eyes and come find someone else. Yep. Like, don't come dick eat the people that's already on. Come dick eat the people that need to get on.
And they doing that for the likes and because the name already rings bells.
And so, like, he was supposed to be there to find somebody, not to rediscover a motherfucker. And that shit really pissed me off. And so I'm very adamant now. So that event really kind of taught me how to, like, just be direct now on what I need from people. And, you know, shout out to my guy Marcus, who came out here from Philly to help me run the media of that particular event. But even that, you know, just, I had one of the photographers tell me, like, yo, I've never been to an event so organized when it comes to the media. We told them what we needed. We gave them direction. It wasn't just a free fall. We even made it where, like, we don't want all of y'all just under the basket. Y'all need to fucking rotate. Give other people an opportunity to get some footage. Keep that shit moving. You know what I mean? So it was a great event, and that's actually where I met Bo at while he was introduced to me. But then we met at some other stuff, and now here we are doing this podcast. So. It was a great event, man, and I'm looking forward to the next one that we're doing. I'm trying to do something in between that and then, which I got an event I'm partnering with Larry Daniels on August the 12th. It's going to be at 167. But the obviously the event and the thing that I loved about the first event at 167 is RJ came down there and put on a fucking show. Yep,
RJ wasn't ranked before that. RJ was right, and granted, I've known RJ since
his family.
Nike. We were doing Nike camps at Kenwood. He was a little runt, always come up there hooping, talking crazy, wasn't making no buckets, but was up there. But I've watched his maturity and his growth as a basketball player to who he is now. That was one of the first times I saw RJ just kind of take over and be like, "That
I belong."
Matter of fact, RJ is one of those kids that I said, "I don't know yet," but then he showed me. I'm like, "Oh,
he got it.
RJ got it. RJ got it."
And we're gonna end on that note. RJ got it. He's not. RJ is up next. I love talking about that kid because I love his family and I love his pop. So he come from good stock. I definitely want to. I appreciate you, coming out, Coach, making some time for us. I know you're dealing with a family. I'm deaf, so I definitely appreciate you making some time. Shout out to my guy Bo Harris over there in AGM Plus, Goldmine TV. Numerex, my guy Tyree, Derek Ellison, which, of course, I'm always going to shout them guys out. Chi-Town Showcase, which is coming up in October. And last but not least, this is kind of on a funny note, but I definitely want to shout out my guy Cortez Washington. He watches our show. He has given me some great feedback. He has sponsored. We're going to be getting a new banner soon, so he definitely provided the sponsorship for that. So shout out to him. So when you watch this, Cortez, just know, Bella, that we appreciate you and keep that critiquing coming. You and RJ, we definitely appreciate you guys. So if it's just y'all two watching, which we know it's not, but just because I know y'all two are watching, it means a lot to me. And on that note, we're going to close out, and we see y'all on the next episode.